Guys, back at again, building our motorized support legs for our R620 Scania truck by Tamaya. In our last video, we set the truck up. In this video, we're going to build the legs and get the material ready to put it on the trailer. So, first off, what they have you doing is building the battery box, which is just this guy here. There's a couple pins. You get 4 of these guys here with no wires on them. They actually tuck in, and then this guy tucks up over them and holds them in place. Now you do 2 of those, and you've got another little piece right here. This is where your battery sits in. So you build 2 of them, and then they're stuck together with some double stick tape right in the center. So we'll just set that aside. Next is going to be our switch. Our switch is just a single nut on this bracket. You can see that the bracket has actually got a spacer here for the alignment pin, so you can get it aligned correctly. So now that we've got that, we're going to move on to building the box portion. Get it out. Now, this box portion is actually going to go on the trailer, and it's what the switch hits to tell it to activate. So what we got is our A8, A8, A7, and then an A5. Let's see. A5. So it looks like switches. You get these 2 micro switches here. It looks like white red, if we're holding it like this, white red goes on the back. Like that, and there's these pins right here that go through the switch, and orange, green, black go on the other one here. I'm going to route it all around nice and neat, and we're going to come out of the hole, so just like that. Make sure you stay out of your way there, because you've got a slider, this guy here. So, okay. So we got that on. They want us to grease it, of course. Tube of blue grease around here. Well, it comes with a little tube of blue grease. I think mine fell off the table, but that's right. So we'll just line up, and then make sure that your wires are down and out of the way, so when you put on your top plate and screw it down, you don't pinch your wires. So wiggle your wires here just to make sure you don't pinch them. And that's going to go together with 2 of the 2x5s, which are these shiny silver ones with the big head on them. And if you're feeling any weird pressure and this isn't sitting right, don't keep screwing it, because you're going to just break those wires and you're going to be resoldering them. So just again, make sure you've got good play and that nothing's pinched. And we'll do our second screw here. Alrighty. So give me 1 second. We'll find the rest of the parts for step 9. So, but that's how you do your switch. Seems like there should be a spring there, but there's not. So we'll give you 1 second. Let me get some parts together, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, guys, we're back. I think I have everything out. So let's start with our motor. This shaft right here, when you're building it, there's I've already built it because it took me a couple tries to figure it out. There's a notch. It's kind of hard to see right here. You just basically run that gear, that square or hex up until you hit the knot, and then tighten it down. Make sure you Loctite that. So, good and tight there. Our motor, they say to take this B7 and it slides up onto the motor like this. And then you take your worm gear and you press it down and on. Make sure you press it on right. The flat side's at the top. So we'll get that pressed on. Gentle, you don't want to mangle up the teeth, so just kind of be gentle and slowly press it on. So you should end up with something like that, and then that black piece just comes off. Our next step is going to be running our wires through. There's a hole in the side of this case. You just run your wires through the case. And that is part number A13 and A10. A10 is the one with the holes in it. So we just kind of get it lined up. There's a little nub right here in A10. It's kind of hard to see. Incredibly hard to see, sorry. Right there. Just catch the shadow of it. And there's a hole in your motor. Those line up. So they lock in place like so. And then just gentle, don't pull your wires off your motor. So now that that's in place, we're going to take our red gear and take some grease. And in our middle hole right here, we're going to put a little grease in. They don't give you very much grease in this kit, so I'd say use it sparingly. But you kind of want to make sure you grease everything. So I'll just use a little like that. So that way as that gear spins, it hits the greasy part. Our next one is going to be our gray one. So grease the hole that goes in. And it gets a pen. And then the gear goes on. Make sure you're not breaking teeth on the gear or nothing, and you've got good gear mesh here, and this guy's nice and flat in there. And then our green gear goes up top with the hex side out. So now that this is all together, we're going to use up some more grease wherever we can get it to go on. Don't use it all, because like I said, you gotta grease a bunch of stuff still, and they just don't give you very good grease. So once you've got that looking like that, you're gonna take the hex shaft and install it like that. That's our shaft we built earlier. And then on this side, before you put it together, make sure you grease all your holes where your gears run. Just like that, your 2 holes. And snap it together. Okay, now they give you Allen-headed screws and nuts to hold this whole thing together. Make sure you're Loctiting as you're going. So I'll just do one real quick and get it held up, and then I'll pause the video and move on to our next step. So let me just get this. So just Loctite, run it down nice and tight, and there you go. You got one motor worm gear set up. Do not try and turn this, because that motor's got a worm gear on it. You're not going to turn it, so you'll just strip something out. So don't try and turn them. Just kind of make sure that there's no binding up in this direction. But other than that, don't try and turn it. So give me a second. I'm going to pause, finish building this, and get the trailer out. We're going to put the legs on, and we'll go through that step next. So give me 1 second. Alright guys, we're back, and our next step is not the trailer. Our next step is going to be building the wiring. So what we're going to do is, they've got a nifty little wiring diagram here. It's going to be hard to see, so I'm just going to do it real quick and tell you what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Now they want you to rubber tube all this stuff together, but I have soldering stuff, so I'm going to do that instead. When I solder, I use flux, and I use a track power soldering iron, and I solder I just do it real easy for me. Is I put a little flux on the wires, I put solder on my iron, and with the flux there, all you have to do is put your solder on it, and you're done. So once I've done, once you do that, make sure you heat shrink. So drop some heat shrink down. You can see that that's actually a good strong bond. It's not going to bend or break. So just put a little heat shrink on, and I will fire that all off when I'm done. So our next part, we're going to grab our switch base we made, and out of our switch base we have a long black from the switch base and a long black from the switch, the manual functioning switch for the unit. So the blue wire I just put on is on the positive, and the black wire we're about to put on is going to go on the negative. So make sure you get your heat shrink on first, because you can't get these off, or you can't put the heat shrink on after you've done it. There's a little hole in it. I just run the wire through the little hole. Make sure they're twisted together nicely too. It'll help you get it through the little hole. Fold it in half. Give the battery setup a couple twists, because it'll be easier to twist. Let's see, we'll put a little flux on it. I just use a needle when I'm doing it. I just scoop a little up and put a little on. Now don't go hog wild with the flux, because the soldering goes wherever the flux is at. So it'll make a big mess if you're not careful. So we'll just put a little on the tip, and then with the little on the tip, just touch it, and voila, that's how it's done. So 2 joints, slide our heat shrink down and over. Alrighty, so blue long, blue short. supposed to be another blue wire here. Let's see if I can locate it. Here we go. Blue short. And blue off the motor go together. And just twist them together. And then we don't need it to be this long, so I'm going to cut that off. Now they give you these guys here. You're supposed to slide it on like that and crush it and then put rubber tubing that they give you on over it. But like I said, I have heat shrink, so I'm just going to solder and heat shrink mine. So you've twisted them together like that. And you just kind of fold her up. Put a little flux on it. Get our soldering iron. A little solder. Let's make sure we're doing this right. Blue on the motor goes to blue here. And blue here. Now that we've got that end's going to be sealed, so we got to make sure we put our heat shrink on now. That one goes down here. And then these two blues get twisted together like so. And again, make sure we put our heat shrink on. Now that first piece we put on covers just the first solder joint. This one's going to cover the second one. And the reason we twist these together first is because these two are going to connect to the same part right over here. We kind of just want to, when we heat shrink them, we want them to shrink together well. So, we'll wrap those up as good as you can get them. It's going to be kind of hard now, but just get them as good as you can. Scrape a little flux on there. Now, I've had this flux for like 4 years. I use so little of it that it just keeps lasting. So it was a good $10 investment. Probably paid a bit much for it, but it's lasted a long time. So the blue that we put on the positive over here is going to come on down to the negative on the other battery setup we made. And the reason we do that is so we can make a complete circuit of 4 batteries instead of a partial circuit of 2 batteries. It's so we can have more power at the leg. So, run our heat shrink down on that one. Now on our last little arm here, we're going to get our orange off of our switch here. Now make sure you're not getting these wires all tangled up, because you'll fight it later on if they're all tangled up. So that last plug, our positive, gets our orange. So do that. Shrink tube. Shrink tube all the way on. Wire through the hole. Twist it up. Flux. And then lastly, our two reds go together. So take a little heat shrink, put it on the red first, and then take the two reds side by side like so and just twist them. Now you can solder them like this real quick. And then cut it, or you can cut it before, it doesn't matter. However's easier for you, and then just fold it over, and your heat tube slides over the top like that. Let's turn off the iron, because we're all done. And we're going to shrink those. Let me find a fire implement of some kind. Give me 1 second, guys. We'll be right back. Alright, got it. So just a little heat, and the tube shrinks right up. Just be careful, they'll catch on fire on you like that one just did. So, don't burn yourself. It's not worth it. Make sure you get every one of them, though. So, as I'm finishing this up, I don't think we're going to get to the trailer in this video. This video is already kind of long, so like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Speedy Mech, signing off.